Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Whether you're joining us from the comfort of your home, or maybe a hotel room as you travel, or here at our inspiring Los Angeles campus, we're delighted to welcome Shabbat together with you. And we know there's so much going on in our lives, in our families, in our city, in our country, in our world. But this opportunity to pause and just be in this moment together, in this community together, in the presence of friends and loved ones together. This is the blessing of Shabbat. Hine ma tov u'ma na'im shevet achim va'achot gam yachad. How beautiful it is for us to have these moments of togetherness. We're going to begin our Shabbat prayers this evening by inviting Ed and Carol Horowitz to light our Shabbat candles. You can follow along on page 2.
אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של שבת.
We'll continue with words of Shalom Aleichem on page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchuni Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzeitkhem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Our traditional service to greet Shabbat contains 7 psalms, one for each day of the week. But we recite 6, and then we interrupt the pattern with nearby helicopters, but also to sing the Lechado Di before continuing with Psalm 92, a song for Shabbat. And in this way, Lechado Di serves as a gateway from the week into the sacred time of Shabbat. So as we invite what our ancestors from Tzfat called the Shabbat bride into our midst, we're really inviting sacred time and sacred rest to begin. Only then do we get to celebrate Shabbat. So let's invite sacred time into our midst together. You can find Lechado Di on page 20. invite you to please rise.
בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמונה עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, יאי ליי ליי, יא לה 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 ליי לך דודי, יא לה 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 ליי לקראת כלה, לה 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 ליי בני שבת, בני שבת בקבלה, לה 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 ליי לך דודי, לה 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 ליי לקראת כלה, לה 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 ליי בני שבת, בני שבת נקבלה.
We'll continue with the Baruch Hu on page 28. In our kahal, we traditionally remain standing from now all the way through the first verses of the Shema, but just want to let you know, if you need to take a breather anytime after Baruch Hu, please feel free. Once again, page 28. We turn now to page 32 for Ahavat Olam, a prayer which expresses our gratitude for God's love and notice of humanity and of the people of Israel.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו ושוכבנו ופומנו נשיח בחובך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגי יומם ולילה, נגי יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Our sages shared a story describing that when our ancestors found themselves at the Sea of Reeds with Pharaoh's army at their heels, the seas didn't part until someone waded in over his head. Only then could the Israelites march forth to freedom. How many times in our own lives have we found ourselves up against the sea, unable to take those tentative first steps forward into the fearsome unknown? But in our hearts we know we cannot return from whence we came. And while the path ahead might be unclear, even a bit threatening, there's only one way we can walk. We have to walk forward. So I invite you to walk forward with us as we sing words of Mi Chamocha on page 40. We'll continue shortly on page 253 with a prayer for healing. And as we think of those in our lives who could use a prayer of healing, I want to ask us to do so tonight, not just limited to the very narrow prism of our own experiences. Because we all have loved ones that we're thinking about. And we need to pray for them. And better yet, we need to call them and tell them let's also try to expand our thoughts to those outside our circle, to those we've never met, to those we know who suffer for one cause or another. May that be the prayer that reaches the ears of the heavens tonight. Page 253. Let us pray for healing. On page 48, we'll find our tefillah, the central prayer of any Jewish service. And the tefillot were modeled after the ancient Israelite ritual of sacrifice, the korbanot. But in Hebrew, korban, which means sacrifice, comes from the word karov, which means to approach or to draw near. So I want us to think about what we're drawing near to tonight as we stand with our most intimate prayers. I invite you to please rise. We have the opportunity to pray silently, beginning on page 48, ending on page 62. And if you don't find the prayers you need there, well, maybe we just need to make up our own.
Say shalom bimromav uyase shalom aleinu
Amen. In this week's Parsha, Balak, the king of Moab, invites the prophet Balaam to curse the Israelites. Along his path, Balaam encounters an angel sent to warn him against this perilous venture. But the angel doesn't turn Balaam around. Instead, the divine messenger permits him to carry on with his journey. But the angel's appearance provides hope in the midst of menacing uncertainty that a benign resolution lies ahead. And it can seem that we're in need of angels now more than ever, with the perils of conflict, disease, hunger, and oppression threatening our people across the world once again, and an uncertain future on the horizon. But, like our ancestors before us, we too have the benefit of angels sent to provide hope amidst uncertainty. Our guest speaker tonight, Elie Beer, founder and president of United Hatzalah of Israel, an organization whose volunteers have provided hope to so many in their greatest moments of doubt, both in Israel and across the world, is one such angel. With its most recent efforts, Operation Orange Wings, United Hatzalah has brought medical aid to refugees in Ukraine and evacuated Ukrainian refugees to Israel, a partnership that we are humbled at Stephen Wise Temple to participate in. I'd like to all of us to wish a Shabbat Shalom to our angel tonight, Elie Beer. It's okay, you can clap. It's deserving.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Thank you. Thank you. 4 months ago, I received a phone call from a woman who was living in Israel. She was crying on the phone. It was a Friday night, and she was crying. She was asking me, Elie, I need your help. I need United Hatzalah's help. I said, what do you need? We help everyone who needs. You don't have to call me directly. We have an emergency number you could call. She said, no, this is something that I turned to everyone. I couldn't get help. She said, I was trying to have children for many years, me and my husband. They live next to Modi'in, the city of Modi'in. They couldn't get pregnant. And they went to Ukraine 9 months before. And they started a surrogate process. And they found someone to carry their own baby. And she tells me the baby was born yesterday in Kiev, and the bombings just started in Kiev 2 days before. She said my baby was born in a small little clinic. They had to move all the women down, 80 women. They moved them down to underneath the building, which wasn't really protected, but that was the only thing they had. And this woman is crying. Her name is Vered, and she says to me, please save my little girl that was born yesterday. My girl is only 1 day old, and the woman who carried the baby had to run away 5 hours after she delivered the baby. And the nurses want to run away. Everyone wants to get out of there. The bombings are right there. She said, I need someone to rescue my little baby. Please save her. When I heard that, you know, we hear these stories. We heard these stories from our parents and grandparents. Things like that happened in Europe 85 years ago. And I call my people who were already situated, United Hatzalah volunteers, the volunteers you see in Israel driving the ambucycles, these motorcycles, these orange motorcycles all over, who are really angels, like you said, Rabbi. And these volunteers stop everything they do and run to save other people. So I had volunteers in Moldova, in Poland, and other places, and some of them were still in Ukraine. And I asked them, let's do everything possible to save this baby. It took 62 hours of operation inside Ukraine. We had to find an ambulance that was willing to drive inside Kiev from another city. Couldn't find gasoline. They were out of gasoline already. And we had to get some army and police to escort the ambulance out. We had to get a doctor to take the baby out because otherwise they wouldn't even let to take the baby out. We had to get the ambassador of Israel, Joel, who's a saint, to drive 4 hours to the border of Ukraine and Moldova to wait for this little it was already 2-day-old baby, and give that baby papers to leave Ukraine and come to Moldova. We had to take that baby to Romania, and a plane was waiting for her. This little baby, a plane was waiting. The plane landed from Israel with the mother. Everything was arranged by United Hatzalah. The baby now is 4 months old, I think, around 4 months old. And little baby's name is Rain. And living in Israel with her parents. And I'm saying this story is because it's not United Hatzalah that did this. It's all of us together. This congregation, together with all of you, went ahead and decided, we're living in California in a beautiful area. Look at this beautiful view behind me. But people are suffering in the other side of the world. People's lives were destroyed. In one moment, people's life stopped and they had to run away again. This is 85 years after a lot of them were running. And I decided I'm going to go there myself and see what's going on. We started sending planes. We called it Operation Orange Wings. And we were sending planes loaded with medical equipment, with food, with supplies, humanitarian stuff that they needed, medicines. And the planes were not coming back empty. The planes were coming back with hundreds of refugees that had nowhere else to run but to run to Israel. This is why Israel is there, for every single human being, every single Jew in the world could know that one day if he needs to come or she needs to come, we have open arms for them. United Hatzalah brought over 3,000 refugees to Israel. A lot of them were young babies like Rain, but another one was a man that I found on the border of Moldova, and it was snowing. It was really a snowy day, freezing day. I was on the border with my volunteers. We had a little hospital, a field hospital. So people were coming exhausted after days of walking. And we took care of them, and we gave them food, hot meals. And then we helped them get to the Kishinev, the capital. And I'm on the border, and I see an old man walking towards me. He looked like he's falling. He was still on the side of Ukraine. So I ran to him, and I was holding his hand. He was holding a little bag with him, a little tiny bag. I took the bag from him. That was all his belongings. This man started crying. I hugged him. I don't know who he was. I couldn't understand the language. He was speaking Russian or Ukrainian, and I don't speak that language. But I thought maybe he's Jewish. I don't know. I said, I'll try. I said, Verstehst Yiddish? And I don't know Yiddish either. But I knew that if he answers, he knows Yiddish. That was a language my parents always kept away from me. They could talk to each other. And this man started crying. He started saying in Yiddish a bunch of stuff, and I didn't understand them either. But I knew I'm talking to someone who's probably not his first time running away. And I got him sitting down, and we gave him a hot cup of tea. And one of my volunteers who speaks Ukrainian came to him, a volunteer from Ashkelon. He left. He's a lawyer. He's a volunteer in Israel whenever they have an emergency. And by the way, they just had 2 missile attacks towards Ashkelon. That's why I was so busy just a few minutes ago. And it never ends there. And this volunteer from Ashkelon is talking to this old man who is 92 years old. I thought he was younger. He looked younger. 92 years old. His name is Misha. And he was crying, and he was saying this is his second time running. And he says, when I was a little boy, I was running with my mother, and she was feeding me dry bread, and I couldn't eat it because it was too dry, so she would wet it with rain. And he says, now I don't even have my mother to feed me. That's what he was telling this volunteer. When I heard it, I started crying like a little child. And I said to myself, I'm here for this. I took Misha, I hold his hand, I said, I'm taking you to Eretz Yisrael. I'm taking you to Eretz Yisrael. I knew he's going to understand Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. And I walked him to a bus waiting there, and we put him in. We took him to Kishinev Tower. We had a place, we had a big soup kitchen that we built, and a big place where they could rest, and we had beds there. It was intense, but it was heated inside. And I promised him I'll take him to Israel. He was never on a plane before. He had no documents. And he was scared to go. I said, I'm going to go with you. We had planes going back and forth every day. And I took him into the plane, into El Al plane. And he was crying and he was shivering the whole way. And all of a sudden I realized in the back of the plane, they had a man holding a Torah. He rescued a Torah from one of the synagogues in Kharkov. And he was holding the Torah. I asked him, could I hold the Torah? We had there 195 refugees in the plane. They had more pets than I ever saw in my life. Every single refugee brought his pets. But all of a sudden I see one person holding a Torah. I said, I need that Torah. He said, why? I said, I need a man needs that Torah to hold. I took it over to Misha. And I asked him, he saw it, he started crying again, and he was holding it so tight. And that's how we brought him into Israel. When we landed the plane, he was holding the Torah. And we landed Israel for his first time in his life. Misha came to Israel. Now Misha is living in Ashkelon. We found him a place. He has a nephew living in next to Tel Aviv. But Misha is one of thousands of people that we brought to Israel. And we helped over 50,000 people that we helped with food and medicines and other things directly to their homes, and many other people who got help. And I want to thank Stephen S. Weiss congregation, temple, and school for all the work you guys did to support our mission in Ukraine that is still going on until today. Even today, we were rescuing sick people out of Ukraine. So I want to give something small to the shul, to all of you. I know a lot of you on Zoom, and I want to thank you. You know, I wish I could bring Little Rain and Misha to show you who you helped. But I want to bring you a little. I have Carolyn here, and United Hatzalah is a volunteer organization. We have over 6,500 volunteers, but we have thousands of people like you who are real partners in all our life-saving work. So where's the rabbi? And Dina Kadisha, who you all know, she's a member of the community. She started this relationship, and I want to thank her. If she's watching us, she's in Israel now. She couldn't be here today. Carolyn, come help me read this.
Sure. So it says, we cannot do all the good the world needs, but the world needs all the good we can do. Thank you, Stephen S. Weiss Temple and Schools. Thank you for partnering with United Hatzalah to provide humanitarian and medical aid to Ukrainian refugees.
This is, we're proud to have this in your beautiful, beautiful temple. And we hope to grow our partnership in many other ways. Bezrat Hashem, I'll be back here in LA. We're coming on, I want to invite you personally and many members of the community. We have an event in September 19th here in LA. Ambassador David Friedman will be coming, speaking on behalf of the organization. Love to have you all. Thank you so much for having us tonight.
Thank you, Rabbi, so much. Thank you.
It's probably a dangerous place to put that, so we're going to move it for the moment. I think we need to work on getting another plane. For those of you who don't know, or those of you joining us online, you can read all about Operation Orange Wings and the ongoing effort. It's still going on. There are still people who need our help. You can read about it by visiting wisela.org/Ukraine. That's wisela.org/Ukraine. Our efforts to support Operation Orange Wings have not stopped. The need is still there. And if we want to live in the world of our dreams, then we have to step up and make it happen. So please visit, please support, so that we can continue to help the people of Ukraine and the amazing organization of United Hatzalah in everything they do. Thank you once again, Elie and Carolyn. Just amazing work, amazing work. Which reminds me a little bit of this week's Parsha. You see, the prophet Bilam makes it to the spot where he's supposed to curse the Israelites, but he can't curse them. The only words that come out are words of blessing. And the penultimate blessing is one we use in our daily liturgy. Ma tovu oalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael. How beautiful are your dwelling place, your tents and your dwelling places, O Israel. But we don't always read what comes after. And in that blessing, Bilam talks about the beautiful gardens and the strong trees and the rivers and the waters that adorn the encampment of the Israelites. He was looking at a dusty camp. There are no rivers. There are no flowers. There are no trees. There were no gardens. But Bilam saw what could be. He articulated a vision of what could happen. Rather than dwell on the negative of the experience that the Israelites had had up to that point, and it was pretty negative, he looked and he saw something beautiful. We have to do the same thing. In a moment, we'll say a prayer for the United States of America. We'll say a prayer on behalf of the state of Israel. We might not like what we see right now when we look at either one, but we have to imagine the future that we want. We have to articulate that vision, and then we have to commit to making it happen, just like the good people at United Hatzalah have done, just like the example they've shown us. And so I'll continue with a prayer for the United States of America. It's not in the book. It's not in the book. God and God of our ancestors, we ask you to bless this nation and its peoples. Open our arms and our hearts and our minds to one another. Let us never withhold your gift of dignity from our fellow human being. Grant us the determination to preserve the wonders of creation and the steadfastness to safeguard all created in your image. Teach us to honor the guardians of life and liberty, whether they proudly wear the uniform of our nation or defiantly wield signs of peaceful protest. Grant us the resolve to spurn the freedoms we don't want to spurn freedoms. We want to spurn the enemies of freedom and justice, whether they brandish the weapons of fear or of greed or of hatred. And may we remember that we can only reap the fruits of virtue, of peace, and of love by sowing the seeds of virtue, of peace, and of love. Then shall justice roll down like water, and righteousness like a mighty stream. Please join me in a prayer for the state of Israel, which can be found on page 259.
Avinu shebashamayim, tzur Yisrael vegoalo, barechet medinat Yisrael, reshit tzmichat geulateinu.
Please join me. Heavenly One, protector and redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise and defend, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Avinu shebashamayim, tzur Yisrael vegoalo. Amen. Selah. Amen. Selah.
We continue by taking a moment to take note of those happy moments we've had in the week that passed, And no, I'm not just talking about the president's visit to Israel, which yielded great news, but maybe news of a more personal kind. Is there anybody this past week or in the week that comes who I know one celebrating a birthday? 50, right, Ed? Okay. Any other causes for celebration? Maybe weddings, anniversaries, retirements? No takers? You don't need to say it out loud. If you're celebrating for one reason or another, please stand up. Good. We all need to celebrate with Ed, so we're going to ask you to please stand up. Our kiddush can be found on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava v'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
We'll remain standing for the Elenu, which can be found on page 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Please be seated. If you read our daily kavanot, which is a daily email from our clergy, if not, you can sign up for it at wisela.org. You will know, if you paid attention over the past 2 weeks, that this coming Sunday is the 17th day of the Hebrew month of Tammuz, which is a day of mourning and fasting that commemorates the destruction of the walls surrounding Jerusalem in the year 70 by the Romans. This begins a 3-week countdown towards Tisha B'Av, another fast day when we recall the destruction of our ancestors' holy temple. But immediately after that, we cast our gaze toward the month of Elul, to the new year, in which we must think not of the past, but of what we must do to secure a better future. Like our ancestors, all of us have suffered tragic losses of one kind or another, and we have to take the time to grieve. And like our ancestors, we too have to find the time to prepare for what lies ahead, using the memories and the lessons that our loved ones left us to empower us to make a brighter tomorrow. And so whether you're grieving or simply remembering tonight, either for Shiva, the first 7 days of mourning the loss of a loved one, or Shloshim in the first 30 days of mourning the loss of a loved one, or in the first year of mourning the loss of a parent, or commemorating a yortzeit, the anniversary of a loved one's passing. If you're joining us from home, we invite you to share the names of your loved ones so that we can honor their memory together with you. And if you are mourning here with us, we invite you to please rise. We can find words of Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 294. That's page 294. I'm going to invite our entire community to rise together with our mourners. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shema Rabba, Bialma, Divra, Chirote, Viamlich, Malchute, B'chayichon, Uviomechon, Uchayid, Cho Beit Yisrael, B'agalau, Vizman Kari, Vimru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Leolam Meomaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpoar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitalev V'yitalal Shmei Dekudesha B'richu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata la'miran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba min Shemaya V'chaim Elenu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom b'mromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Elenu v'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Zichronam Livracha, we ask that the Holy One ensure that the memories of our loved ones always remain a blessing, and together we say, Amen. Please be seated. As we said at the start of this evening service, it is a privilege to welcome sacred time together with you. So thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for those of you who joined us online. And special thanks to those who bring our prayers to life, Cantor Tanaz, Bachraman Faruzenfar, and of course our musicians, Tali and Jeff and Roz and the crew who are bringing this and making the audio work and bringing it into people's homes. We certainly had a meaningful message tonight. So if you're watching on social media, we invite you to please share it. Share the message of United Hatzalah and the great work that we're doing with them so that we can get as much support as possible. You're also allowed to like and share on Facebook, even if you're here. It's totally fine. No one will complain. We're going to conclude tonight with Adon Olam, which can be found on page 321. Shabbat Shalom.
Adon Olam Hashem.